that incident in Manchester as well. Scott, in commentary, I think, hits it on the head rather well. 3 officers were assaulted during this incident. All received hospital treatment, one sustaining a broken nose. The guy was kicked. He'd already taken officers to the ground and grappled with them. The firearms officer arrives. He's probably carrying a Glock 17 pistol and an MP5 carbine. The last thing that officer wants to do is roll around on the floor with a violent suspect, so he uses his legs. He kicks the suspect and stamps on him to keep him down. He then crouches down to detain him. Yes, it looks bad, but it's totally justified. Unfortunately, the public never understand the impact factors that would lead to an officer doing this, and the mainstream media have no qualms in vilifying the police for clicks. I couldn't agree more with that. That's a brilliant analysis, Scott. What I've been saying all morning, the optics don't always look grand. It's the job of policing, frontline policing, violent offenders, day in, day out, dealing with the worst kind of human beings that most of us never come across in our lives. We see it from a distance, we watch it online. These people are at the coalface of this kind of jip, aggression, aggro and violence. So when we see a video out of context, it's wise to just hold fire and just think about what else might have happened. There are now some other videos that show pre this incident where there's clear antagonism from the suspects in this case. There's a clear and obvious resistance to the police from the word go. So whilst I'm seeing commentators all over the place saying there could be no justification for this, well, there might be. And in all probability, there is. Look, the police know they're being filmed. They know that they're in an airport, for goodness sake, even if somebody hasn't got their camera phone out. The airport itself have got cameras all over. There's cameras in the flipping skirting boards, for God's sake. You can't miss anything. So they're aware that this thing is public, and that is the action they took at the time. We'll wait with interest to what the official investigation throws up, but I'm sure there will be one. Let's speak on a greater issue, wider issue of crime. Norman Brennan, former London cop of over 30 years, big campaigner on areas such as knife crime. Norman, I know that we can't always get into the specifics of something until we know the details, but I think what we just heard from that texter and the words that I said on the back of that do broadly sum up where we're at. The optics don't always look great in policing, but there's invariably a wider context.
Well, the main 2 words for firearms officers is control and containment. I actually didn't comment at all on it last night. I saw horrendous abuse against the police. And if you look at the piece that was cut, it's so often conveniently cut when people place it on social media. The full context was not seen. If you just look at an officer kicking somebody in the head, it's not good to look, and it looks dreadful. However, when these officers were dealing with these individuals, they were aware that 3 of their colleagues had just been hospitalised. A female colleague had been punched in the face, blood everywhere, broken nose. She's on an ambulance en route to hospital. So the officers that we're dealing with are all armed. Your hands are controlled with a taser or a firearm, so you can't use your hands. The only other thing you can use is your feet. Whether it was appropriate or not, of course, there's an investigation. But I don't think it's right that some of these community leaders are outside a police station asking for officers to be hung, drawn and quarter, suspended, sent to prison on the say-so of a small clip of video. And not only that, they're almost threatening, or they were, I've seen it, rioting.
Yeah.
Now, that's not how we work in Britain.
It's curious, isn't it? Well, we've seen this before. I mean, the London riots began in a kind of similar way with a protest outside, I think I'm right in saying, in Hackney, a protest there, and it kind of spread. And, of course, as you rightly say, we don't work like that in this country. That's not how we function. We wait and see. We have an investigation. Standing up a mob shouting, threatening violence outside a police station is no way to do it. You might do that in some kind of medieval backwater country somewhere else in the world, but we don't do that in the UK. It doesn't get anybody anywhere. There is a process, and that process needs to be established. It's all on film, aside from even the bits that happened before are on film, much as some of those protesters don't want you to see that bit. And, of course, what happens subsequently as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You never see the provocation. We didn't see the officers being given a good hiding, allegedly by this group. 3 of my colleagues, if they were hospitalised, Ian, and I attended there, what I'd want to do is I want to make sure that those individuals had no chance whatsoever of doing the same to me and my other colleagues. And it doesn't matter whether you're male or female, but there were 2 other female officers there. And I'll be quite honest with you, although I knew that my colleagues could handle themselves, I would certainly be particularly concerned that my female colleagues were not punched in the face or seriously assaulted like a previous colleague and 2 other male officers.
Yeah.
So the context, the way it was clipped, doesn't look good. But what we do in this country is we look at all the facts, all of the evidence, all the CCTV, and we actually look at what happened previous and also at the time. And these officers were carrying firearms. You can't use your hands when you're carrying a firearm. The only thing you can have is your knee or your foot, and we don't know the full context.
Yep.
And it's only right and proper, just like every court case or investigation, Ian, that we listen to both sides, and an independent tribunal, which is probably the Independent Office of Police Complaints, they make an overall view and decision on all of the evidence and facts before them.
Yeah, fair point. A word on shoplifting while you're with us, Norman. It's at a record high. Last figures show gone up, I think, just over 30%. Lots of crimes went up, robbery, violent crime, murder, etc., but not in those kind of numbers. It's almost as if we've decriminalised shoplifting. There is an incident every single minute in this country. It's out of control.
Well, last year was up 30%, as you say. 440,000 shoplifting offences were reported or recorded, as it is with police. That's the tip of the iceberg. I would suggest 70-80% of shops and the retail industry do not report the crime. Yeah. And they don't report him because the police don't turn up. The shoplifter is very rarely arrested or detained, and even rarer, prosecuted. Now, when that happens, it's basically a free-for-all. If you want to go to a shop and steal something, you can do it, knowing that the chances of getting caught are pretty close to 0, and even if you are, nothing will happen. And I've seen this morning as well that about 58,000 offences that were reported from tradesmen. That means that a tradesman lose their tools every 8 minutes. And another statistic was that if you're a tradesman, like a plumber, carpenter, electrician, you're likely to be a victim of that crime over a 40-year period 5 times. And the tools that you buy are often in the thousands of pounds. Yep. Rather than 10, 20 or 50. We have a major problem in Britain, not just on knife crime, which is my speciality, that's an epidemic, but also on shoplifting and theft. And it costs, Ian, a year almost £2 billion, almost the same as what it costs for car theft. You could have a car stolen, £100,000 worth, yep. And you'll get a crime number. Now, if you went into a bank and stole £50,000 or £100,000, you'll have the flying squad or a major investigation team investigating it. It's as though victims nowadays are grateful if at the end of each day they're not a victim of crime, and if they are, they're given a crime number. Now, we expect more than that in this country.
Indeed.
The victims, the public deserve better. They deserve an officer to attend, to take a statement, and to do their best to investigate. And so long as that we investigate the best to our ability and we don't even get a result at the end of the day, at least the victims of the public know that we've done their best for them.
Spot on. Norman, it's always a pleasure. Thank you. Telling it like it is, Norman Brennan, former cop, 30 years in the job. He's been around the block.